Alright, welcome to part 3 of this Mockingbird build. We're going to look at soldering together the volume tone pots and also the input jack. Now I'm just going to start here with a little handy trick, and that is to get some corrugated cardboard, get the back cover out of the kit, and just cut this cardboard out to shape. We're going to place that just in the cavity here where the back cover would sit, and we're going to get a screwdriver and we're going to poke through some holes. These holes are to sit the volume and tone pots in while we solder them. Otherwise they're just going to move around every time you go to put a wire in and put some solder on them. And the little hole in the middle just to poke the wires through. Alright, so here's our wires. We have 3 wires at the top and 3 at the bottom. The ones at the top are all associated with our pickup at the neck, and the ones at the bottom are the pickup at the bridge. The 2 pots on the left hand side are our volume pots, and if you turn them over they'll be marked B500K. The pots on the right are our tone pots, and if you look at the front they'll be marked with an A500K. Alright, so we'll start with the volume pots on the left. Now just bend over the pins on the far right, bend them over so they're actually touching that casing of the volume pot, because what we actually want to do is we actually want to solder that pin to that casing so it's grounding itself. Okay, so with this volume pot in the top left hand corner here, which is our volume pot for the neck pickup, we've got that yellow wire which is coming from that pickup at the neck. It's got a little white wire inside, and it's got a ground wire on the outside of that. What we're doing here is we've just taken that little white wire and we're soldering it to that center pin. Now I had to remake this video because I had a corrupt video file, and it meant I had to cut all the wires off these volume pots and redo it, and it's left these wires a bit short and a bit awkward to work with, but when you do it you're going to have full length and it's going to be a lot easier than this. Anyway, we've just twisted there together the black wire coming from the 3-way switch and this green wire. Now this green wire is also attached to this yellow wire. It's about 10 or 15 centimeters long, and they were also attached to 2 more wires that were orange and red. Now they are going to go, those wires are used to go between the volume and the tone pots. And we've just soldered that green and black wire into that pin on the far left, and that's our active. Now if wires in your kit vary a little bit in colour, because they do vary from kit to kit, don't worry about it, because what's important is just that you're able to match up and know what is going where. The colour's not important. What's important is that you know what wires correspond to where they're supposed to be going. Alright, so here we have twisted together that yellow wire, the shield wire from the pickup, and the red wire which comes from the 3-way switch, and all of these are ground wires. Alright, so we've got a ground wire coming from the 3-way switch, which is the red wire. We've got a ground wire coming from the pickup, which is that shield wire, and we've got a ground wire that is going to be used to go to the tone pot. and that's that yellow wire in front of us. So everything has a shield or a ground, whichever one you want to call it, and everything has an active. And if you keep that in mind, working all this out will be very easy. Because here, what we're doing is we're taking this green wire, which is soldered to the active on the volume pot on the left pin, and we're soldering it to the active on the tone pot. Now you could put that green wire on the far left pin of that tone pot, or the pin at the top from this perspective, and it would simply just reverse the action of the tone pot, whether you turn it counterclockwise or clockwise, whether it goes to treble or not go to treble. It doesn't really matter. Alright, so here we have the capacitor. We're going to solder that from the center pin to the outside casing of that tone pot. Which only leaves us with one wire left over here, and that is that yellow wire. And remember, that yellow wire was soldered to the top of that volume pot and grounded, and that's all it needs to do. It's just carrying the ground from the volume to the tone. So we're just going to solder it to that outside casing of the tone pot, and you can see the tone pot, the green wire is the active and the yellow wire is the ground. Alright, so this is the volume and tone pot for the pickup at the bridge, and it's the exact same steps repeated. So the white and the brown wires there are coming from the three-way switch. One is an active, one is a ground. The pickup, the white wire is an active, and the shield wire is the ground. Okay, so we're going to solder that little white wire to the center pin. Here we have an orange and a red wire, which were the two wires that were came to attach together with that yellow and green wire, about 10 or 15 centimeters long in your kit. Right, so one's going to be twisted together with the actives, and one's going to be twisted together with the grounds, and those wires are used to go over to the tone pot. So it should all be starting to make sense. Right, so that white wire and that orange wire are going to be soldered onto that pin on the far left of that volume pot, or the pin at the bottom from this perspective. One is the active coming from the three-way switch, that's the white wire, and that orange wire is that wire that's about 10 or 15 centimeters long, and that's going to be used to go over to the tone pot. Okay, so we also have this other red wire. We have the, well, it looks a little bit more pink than red now compared to the other one, but we also have that red wire coming from the pickup at the bridge. So we need to twist those two wires together, and also that brown wire, which is the ground wire coming from the three-way switch. So the three-way switch, the brown is the ground, the white is the active, the pickup, the little white wire is the active. It has the shield on the outside to ground, and we also need to get that ground and that active over to the tone pot. So here the little orange wire is going to that pin on the far right hand side of that tone pot. Here we're just soldering on that capacitor just like we did with the other one, to the center pin and to the outside casing. Which leaves us with just one wire left over, and by now you should already be able to guess where that's going to go, because it is our ground. Alright, so take this cardboard off, and they're ready to go. We can, that's all done now, all that wiring's done. You can just poke these through the holes in the body, get the little washer, the little nut, and away you go. I did set this up in mind to have the two volume pots facing up towards the neck of the guitar and the two tone pots at the rear, but you can put them in any hole in any configuration you like. Now this is just one way to wire it. Of course there are other ways to do wiring, but this will get you going. But for example, some people prefer to use volume pots that are 250k. There's different ways you can do it. Alright, so here we have the input jack. Very easy, quick job. Alright, so this is also coming from the three-way switch, these wires. Now the purple one on the left is going through that pin on the left, looking at it from this perspective, with the big prong at the bottom, and the grey wire, that pin on the right. Now the grey wire on the right is our active, and the purple wire on the left is our ground. And that grey wire on the right, that pin, is connected to that prong at the bottom of our screen at the moment, and that's what the nib of the input jack is going to touch. Alright, we're all done. Tune into part 4 and we'll look at getting this rest of this guitar together.